Hi, I'm Milton and welcome to the show. Look, this week I'm going to show you how to train and prune your thornless blackberries. I'm going to show you a way to check the soil and how healthy it is. But here I'm in the beautiful Adelaide Hills in a fantastic garden called Oakham, the pride and joy of Robin and David. So come on, let's go and get dirty! How are you, Robert?
Morning. How are you?
Very well.
Welcome to the hills.
Thank you. It's a beautiful garden.
Thank you.
Tell me about it. So how long have you been here?
About 17 years.
17?
Mm.
And did you plan to build a garden or perhaps such a big garden?
Not really. It sort of grew like topsy.
Yeah.
With the initial thought being some lawn to keep the dust down and for bushfire protection.
Okay.
And the rest has sort of happened.
Okay. So where did you start with it? Well, I guess what was the first thing you did?
We put some turf lawn on the slopes at the front of the house, and we planted the beds at the front of the house to try and hold the beds together because they are sloped.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that we just sort of filled in the holes. And it grew and grew, and I kept saying to David, bring the tractor over here, there's no back fence, let's go for it. And here we are, but this is it now.
That's it?
This is all I can cope with.
Yeah, no, it's a nice sized garden as it is. What about the slope at the back of the house? You know, you've terraced that out?
Yes, that was essential. We just couldn't handle the slope itself. So we terraced it and filled it with soil and mulch and chips and heaven knows what, then planted it up, and it's held together really well.
Yeah, and you use the rocks down at the bottom of the wall. They're all local stones?
Local stone, mainly off the farm, but some from one of our friends' farms around the corner. The timbers were old railway sleepers. A lot of blood and sweat into putting them up.
I bet.
But it's worked very well.
Yeah, it's very effective now.
Thank you.
One of the things I really like about it, Robin, is the prunus that you've got at the back of the garden from here, from where we're sitting. It's a really good backdrop. What was the idea of that?
I've always loved the prunus nigra, whatever you like to say. And in the afternoons and the mornings, as the sun's coming up and going down, the red shining through the leaves is just exquisite. Yeah. And prunus are lovely, and some of the flowers are lovely, but you don't see the flowers for very long. So I wanted the leaves to give colour all year round. So that's why we've got this particular one. Yeah,
it's a really good contrast to the rest of the garden, isn't it?
Tough as old boots, doesn't need water.
I love it. And just underneath the prunus, you've got a row of agapanthus, and that almost borders the whole garden. What's the reason for that?
I like agapanthus, number one, but the main reason for doing so many was that agapanthus will stop a grass fire dead in its tracks because they have a big, lushy sort of leaf. So that was the idea of having the aggies everywhere.
That's a great idea because you're out in the country here.
Oh, we're in bushfire zone here, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great design feature that you've got. One other part of the garden that I really am impressed with is that dry garden at the top there. Tell me about that.
The dry garden is something I've always wanted to have, and it is a true dry garden. The French lavenders I struck myself from some existing bushes. The little creepy cactusy thing, I don't know what it's called, that's as tough as they come. We've got sedums. Yes. And we had daylilies too at one stage, but it was getting a bit full. Yeah. So all of that has never had a drop of water other than what Huey sends down. So it's a true dry garden. It
is, and how good does it look? Those lavenders, I've never seen lavenders look as good as those.
And we don't fertilise either. They're just in the soil that's there. So you don't need a lot of water on most gardens.
I think that's a mistake people make with lavenders, is overwater them. Here you can see how beautiful and tight they look. And you prune them, I assume?
Prune them hard, and the lavenders in the dry garden get a hedge trim. Like they come from say 4 foot tall down to about 2'6"
Wow.
when we do cut. And sometimes I think, have we overcooked it? But no, they keep shooting back.
Oh, they look wonderful. And what time of the year do you prune those back hard?
Autumn,
Yeah.
when it's finished flowering after summer.
Okay.
That's the time we do it. And then because it's so cold here, everything stops dead until the spring, and then away it goes again.
Yeah, yeah. And what about the water feature that's just behind us here? Tell me about that.
That's, well, one, I like water features, but two, we had the house feng shui'd some years ago. It's a bit airy-fairy, but we did. And one of the things that was suggested was that I should have water on the northeastern corner of the house. It has to be moving water and with something living in it. So we've got plants and we've got fish and we've got the little fountain. And that works very well, and we can hear it tinkling away from here. Can you hear it?
Oh, I can.
It's delightful. It's very relaxing.
It is beautiful,
Yes.
and it actually draws your eye down this lawn, down to the end.
It does. It's worked well.
Yeah.
So my long-suffering husband built that for me last year.
Oh, good on him. And just lastly, perhaps, Robin, what about the maintenance of the garden? How much work do you put in, or time?
I have someone who helps me, and we both of us go for it 1 day a week.
Yeah.
And we seem to manage doing that.
Gee, a big garden, 2 of you 1 day a week.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Because it is mainly maintenance now. We've finished planting and new
Yes.
stuff. We're just holding it together.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do.
Well, that's not a lot of work.
No, it's not too bad. We have another gentleman who comes in to help with the hedging, if David hasn't got time to do it all. But the rest is just we two girls.
Good. Well,
Poking
so you're
around.
doing a great job.
Thank you.
And the watering, what about watering?
That's on an automatic system, but we only water when we need to.
Yeah.
Like we've had half an inch of rain this week, so we'll turn the systems off. It's
Yeah.
not hot. We're on dam water, salty dam water, so none of it's done overhead except the lawns. Lawns will take up to 3,000 parts per million, and we get at least that at the end of summer. But the rest is all on drip, and we use it very sparingly because the dam's not infinite.
No.
We're very careful.
Good. Well, you're doing a great job, and thank you for having us through your garden.
Pleasure. Thank you, Milton.
Well, here I am in the engine room of every garden. Yes, the veggie garden. And again, I've got veggie garden envy. Have a look at this beautiful vegetable patch. And I'm going to talk to the owner. David, how are you?
Oh, good morning, Wilton. Very well, thank you.
Good. What are you doing here?
Well, this is the Italian heirloom garlic. It's starting to show that it's maturing. So by bending the stalks over, the goodness from the stalks will go down into the bulb and we'll get a fat, juicy bulb of garlic.
Oh, good. And you'll plat them like these guys you did last season?
That was some of last season's. That's a commercial grade.
Yeah.
We grow the 2 grades here. One, the heirloom, which is much later, and that's the early one. We've started pulling the early one already.
Smells really nice.
Yes, they go very well in our garlic sausages.
And when will you, so you're bending those over, and how long will you leave them like that?
Depending on the weather, maybe 10 days, 2 weeks. If we get a hot spell, then they'll come out earlier.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the rest of the garden.
Alrighty, come on then.
David, tell me about the shade cloth you've got up.
Well, Milton, firstly, we had a serious problem growing anything in this area because it was far too hot. And we thought about the shade cloth and spoke to people in town, and they suggested that the 80% horticultural shade cloth was the way to go. Since we've put this up, we have no problems at all.
And what time of the year do you put it up?
As soon as it gets hot in November, we slide it across and it'll stay across until late in autumn.
Wow. Well, everything looks beautiful. I mean, you've got these beautiful scarlet beans next to us, looking fabulous. And
yes, they go well.
Tomatoes are looking really good here. Now, what are you doing? You're growing those up on a single stake, and it looks like you're pruning every side shoot out.
Yes, we take them up so that they get their full height and we get bigger and better fruit that way.
Yeah. And well, they're looking really good. And I see you are taking the foliage off the bottom.
Yes.
That stops all those bugs going up.
Yes, it takes the ladder away.
Yeah, that's
Stops
right.
them from getting up the stem.
And look, you've got beautiful greens. You've got rocket and lettuce.
Yeah, have a palate
Oh, I'd
cleanser.
love one. Love
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And what are you planting just here? That's just freshly planted.
This is carrots and radish.
Mm.
We use the lunar planting system here.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, we all know what the moon does. It pulls the gravity, it works the tides, it affects the plants. And if you've got something that's growing down, you want the least amount of gravitational pull to let it go down. So there are windows every month where you plant your root vegetables, your fruiting vegetables, and your leafy vegetables. And it works out around every 28 days. And for me, that makes me plant on a regular basis, so you've got food coming through all the time.
No, excellent. And you can get all that information quite easily, I guess, for people that are wanting to know.
Oh yeah, you can buy a lunar calendar and it's got the planting guide and all the other tips, and we just transfer that into our diary so it reminds me every week when things need to be done.
Excellent, excellent. And oh gee, you still got a beautiful crop of broad beans.
Yeah, try those. Yeah, they're really coming on well. We were a bit late putting everything in this year because we were away, but it's all come up, even though it's been so cold.
Oh, these are beautiful and sweet. And got some carrots there. How old are they?
They went in early August. They're early August.
Mm-hmm.
They're September.
Okay.
So
Gee, big difference on the size, isn't
oh, yeah,
there?
Yeah.
And you keep it nice and mulch. You've got you're just using the cuttings off of the lawn for that, bud.
Most of the time, occasionally we've had to get some pea straw in, but we've just found recycling everything that comes out of the garden and not bringing anything else in, because you buy pea straw, you quite often get weeds as well.
I've seen a few of these PVC pipes lying around. What have you got in there?
Well, these are, we have continual problem with rats here. They love being by the dam, and what we do, we put the blocks in there. They're held in by these wires, and it means that little birds won't go in there. We only just get rats and mice that take those blocks.
That's a great idea.
Stops any off-target damage.
Yep, excellent. And you told me earlier that you use 2 different rat baits, so you don't...
Yes, you've got to be very careful, because if you use the same bait all the time with the active ingredient in it, if a pregnant rat finishes some bait and doesn't die, it'll go back to its nest, feel very sick, but its children will be resistant to that active ingredient. And so if you keep swapping your baits with the different active ingredients, you'll keep the numbers under control.
That's a great idea.
The plant of the week is brought to you by Newman's Nursery, where all your gardening dreams come true.
Have a look at this beautiful tree. Isn't it a beauty? Well, this tree is my plant of the week, and it's Prunus cerasifera nigra, or the flowering plum. Now, this is the dark leaf version that has single pink flowers either in late winter or early spring. But the main feature of this plant really is its very dark foliage. It's purpley, almost black. It's a really good contrast in a garden against green foliage and of course golden foliage. Now, this tree is a perfect tree for your garden. It's a small tree. It grows about 5 metres high by about 4 metres wide. And it's really easy to grow. It grows quickly and it's really quite drought tolerant. Once you get it established after the first couple of years, it's a very low water usage plant. It's terrific under power lines because it won't reach them, and it also doesn't have an aggressive root system, so great for footpaths or in small courtyards. Look, it's a magnificent tree and I love it, and it really does deserve to be my plant of the week. It's Prunus cerasifera nigra, or the flowering plum.
The plant of the week was brought to you by Newman's Nursery, where all your gardening dreams come true.
Well, here we go, Milton. Here's our berry patch.
Wow, so what have you got here?
We're looking at boysenberries here. Very nice fruit, very prickly, very invasive.
Yep.
Got to be very careful of them.
Yeah, and what's this one here?
And these are the thornless blackberries. Really nice to deal with. You don't get spiked or anything with them. And these guys are going to fruit so well this year.
Well, they're absolutely loaded. So what do you do here? Obviously you've got this nice framework, you'll cover them over so the birds don't get them.
In the next day or so we'll get the nets here. They're all the way around so we can get under to do the picking. If we don't get them netted now, we will have birds taking the fruit, and then they deposit the seeds around the garden and even out in the pastures, and that's just not on. So we've got to be very careful about garden escapees when you talk about berries.
Absolutely. So now I like what you've done here. So these are loaded with fruit. These are last year's canes.
Yes, yes.
And these hanging ones are this year's canes. Tell me what you're going to do there.
We'll just try and bundle these new ones up to get them out of the way. Once we've finished fruiting, we will then go right back to the main stem and take off all of the wood that has borne fruit this year.
Right to the ground?
Right down to the ground. Then we tie these guys up, ready for next year.
Gee, that sounds easy.
Takes a lot of time.
Well, at least they don't have thorns like a lot of berries.
That's right. These are the easy ones to deal with.
Well, David, I don't know. Looking at all these berries made me hungry. What do you reckon we go and have some lunch?
I think the nose bag looks good.
My tool of the week this week is the Wolf Garden gardening tools, and it's David's favourite tool. David, why is this your tool of the week?
Well, Milton, I've been through lots of different forks and trowels and kept breaking them, either breaking the fork here or breaking the handle. This little guy has a steel handle, interchangeable ends on it, and it is tough. It is strong. You can do anything with it. You can lever it, doesn't bend, and it is just so strong, and in the trowel here it's really strong up the back, and it's my favourite. Actually, the girls come and pinch them sometimes.
Do they?
It's terrible.
Oh, that's not good. And they just snap in like that?
Yep, just snap in so easily. You can get much longer handles, up to 2 metres long. There would be 10 different ends you can snap into them. You can pick fruit with them, rake, brush, do all sorts of things with them.
They feel really solid. Well, there you go. That's our tool of the week, the Wolf Garden gardening tool range. It's a really good idea when you're choosing plants for your garden to actually have a look in your local neighbourhood and see what's growing well and performing. Well, today I'm in a garden that's watered by really salty water. So let's have a look at what's really performing well. Up to the right of me, we've got bottlebrush. Have a look at it. Magnificent red flowers and that greyish foliage. We've got the beautiful hebes. Look how nice and tight and round they are. The rock roses, the cistus. Now this is just finished flowering. It gets massed with pink flowers. There's also a white variety. Beautiful clumping. Look at this hebe, full of beautiful pink flowers, and have a look at that form. We've also got a rose bush. We've got the beautiful shiny leaf escallonias. Again, this is just finished flowering, but it comes out in pink flowers and just gorgeous. You actually wouldn't even think that that would grow with salty water. And what about the penstemon? How fabulous does that look? Now this is the pinky coloured, or that pinky red colour. They come in all sorts of colours, and don't they look magnificent? Even this hebe up here, it's got those beautiful two-tone foliage, green on the upper edge and purple underneath. It looks fantastic. Now let's go and have a look at some other plants. Here's a Laurustinus, or the Viburnum tinus. It's kept nice and trimmed and round, beautiful shiny foliage. What about the old-fashioned variegated or golden euonymus? Really tough plant. You can see how well that's looking. Again, the old-fashioned plumbago, used for hedging or screen with that beautiful sky blue flower, really salt tolerant. The blue statice or the everlasting flower, again really good salt tolerant plant. And last of all here we've got the rosemary. You can see it's nicely trimmed and that's also very salt tolerant. Now just a couple of other tips when you're trying to grow plants with saline water. Make sure you water them with drippers, and you either water them early in the morning or in the evening. And that way when the water dries out it won't evaporate and leave that salt on the soil. Don't spray the plants with water, otherwise you're going to leave the salt on the foliage and it will cause damage. Make sure you mulch the soil heavily, again so you don't get that evaporation and leave the salt particles on the top of the surface of the soil. Now, if you've got salty water, it's less harmful in a sandy soil, but in a clay soil you need to be very careful. But look, as you can see, even if you've got saline water, you can still grow lots of beautiful plants. You often hear me talking about the health of the soil. You know, what to add in the soil to make it a lot better and grow your plants. Now I'm here with David again. And David, what do you do and what have you done to your soil? You've got a really hydrophobic sandy soil in your garden. What have you done? You've obviously composting.
We've composted everything and we've mulched anything that came out of the garden, and it has gone back into the soil to create the humus in the soil that will help the soil then take in the water.
Yep. So you're adding the compost, all the leafy greens out of the veggie garden. It's composted down in this bin. And what about the charcoal?
Well, these are bits of charcoal out of our wood fire that I've sieved out. I then crush that up into a fine powder and put that back into the soil.
And what does that do?
That just helps free it up. It helps it absorb moisture. And I've heard all about the biochar, and I think this helps as the biochar does.
I reckon it would. So okay, so we've got a test here that you can test your soil at home. It's a simple test. Talk us through it, David.
Well, this is the easiest, cheapest way to find out what your soil's doing. We've got 3 pots here, one that I'm going to fill with compost, one with garden soil, and one with garden soil, but we'll water it with some biota mix, which will help the soil bugs really get going. We're using the inside of a toilet roll holder, and what we'll do as Milton says, we'll get down and dirty. We'll get dirty.
Good.
And we'll
Is this
fill
one for here?
Yes, that soil can go in there. And this will then go into a warm place and be kept moist for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
At the end of that time, we will try and lift the cardboard out. Now, on the compost, all that will be left is what's above ground. That's everything else will have been absorbed by the biota. They'll have chewed that up and taken it away. Whatever happens in here will give us an indication of how the living organisms are going in the soil. I believe that there will still be some underground cardboard here, but it may have holes in it. But in 3 or 4 weeks' time, we'll pull it out and you can have a look at the results. But it's a cheap way of finding out if your soil is alive or if it's dead.
Okay, so I guess after that time, if you can pull the tube out and it's still a tube, your soil's no good.
It's dead.
This is a really good test to find out if it's active. And if it's not, adding compost and all those microorganisms back in the soil will make it work. Thanks, David. We'll check that in a few weeks and see how it's gone. Now I'm back in my veggie patch, and it was only 6 weeks ago that I planted it out. And have a look at it. Everything is just looking fantastic. Now what have I done in the veggie patch since I planted it? A couple of things. I've kept everything watered every 2 or 3 days and sometimes 4 days apart if it's been a bit cooler. I've put up the white shade cloth, very important as the season progresses and it gets warmer. I'm going to leave that shade cloth up from now on until the plants are finished. So I've watered it and I've fertilised it. I've given everything 1 dose of blood and bone in that 6 weeks and everything is just looking great. Now look at the cucumbers I've planted. Just looking gorgeous. Lots of little cucumbers, full and loaded with flowers. I hope I've got lots of insect to pollinate them. Just over this side, the zucchini. Have a look at the size of it. Massive, with some little fruit just starting to form. These are the chilies, and look at them. There's chilies all over them already. Magnificent. And the capsicums are looking really nice. And that beautiful grafted eggplant. My God, it's massive. It's full of flowers now, and that will start to form shortly. And here we've got the beautiful tomato plants. Now this one to my right is the mighty red, and I'm planting it up the sloping trellis. Now remember that faces east to west, and of course that is the best way to grow your tomatoes. Now look at the size of this guy, it's just gone berserk. You can see it's just starting to grow up the trellis, so I'm just going to start by training these guys back, just tying them back to the trellis. Just using that nice, soft, jolly tie. There you go. Now you can see how that's just growing up nicely up that trellis now, and also some beautiful fruit starting to form. So now that I've done that, I need to feed the plants as well. So I'm going to use blood and bone, which is one of my favourite fertilisers. So I'll sprinkle quite generous amounts of blood and bone now. You need to keep your plants growing continuously through the season. So do this about every 2, 3 or 4 weeks. But now at this time of the year, the plants have been in for 6 weeks, as I said. It's time to add some potash to the soil. Now potash is a fertiliser that helps the flowers and the fruit form. So it's essential now at this time of the year when we want more flowers and fruit. So this is potash power. You use about 15 grams per square metre. So it's not a lot. So I'm just going to use a couple of pinches and I'll water it in later. Now, the other thing I like to use, and I put some in at time of planting, that's dolomite lime. Again, really important to help stop that blossom end rot. So just another little sprinkle of that. And then if you've got a really composted soil that's quite acidic, use it a little bit more regularly. Now, that's all the fertilising. What else do I need to do? I've staked them, I've watered them well, I've fertilised them, I've tied them back. So really the only other thing to do is keep the bugs off. Now it's probably a good idea to keep the tomatoes dusted to keep the insects off, or this year I'm going to use a new product called Resolver. Now it's an all-in-one insecticide and fungicide, and it's perfect for your tomato plants. So I'm just going to use that just to give them a little bit of protection. So I'm going to keep the plants sprayed about once a week to once a fortnight to help prevent those insects and diseases attacking my plants. Now I'm going to water these plants about once a week, or if it's really warm, I'll give them a drink twice a week and a really good soak at that. I'll give them another feed in a few weeks, and after that I'm going to pick the tomatoes and absolutely enjoy the taste of beautiful fresh fruit. Look at these stone steps that lead you up to the top of the garden. Don't they look gorgeous? And they're beautifully framed with this ice plant. It's a low, succulent ground cover with masses of pink flowers. Well, look, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for this week. Did you enjoy the show? Well, look, after looking at that veggie garden, I've really got to lift my game. So look, I hope you can join me next time. So see you then.